The train station was almost empty. A cold wind blew across the platform, carrying the smell of rain and old metal. The station clock showed 11:47 p.m. Daniel pulled his coat tighter around himself and looked down the tracks. His train had been delayed again.
"Another 30 minutes,
the speaker announced. Daniel sighed. It had been the longest day of his life. He had just attended his grandfather's funeral, and all he wanted now was to go home, take a hot shower, and forget everything. The station cafe was already closed. Only one small ticket booth remained open. An old man sat behind the dusty window. His white beard reached almost to his chest, and he wore a dark blue railway uniform that looked at least 50 years old. Daniel walked over. "One ticket to Brighton, please." The old man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked directly into Daniel's eyes. For a strange moment, it felt as though he already knew him. Then he slowly printed a ticket. As Daniel reached for it, another small piece of paper slipped from the machine. The old man quickly tried to hide it. "I'm sorry," Daniel said. "I think another ticket came out." The old man hesitated. "No." His voice was unusually quiet. "That one isn't for tonight." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" The old man stared at the second ticket for several seconds before pushing it across the counter. "If I were you," he whispered, "I wouldn't ignore it." Daniel picked it up. At first, it looked completely normal. Destination: Brighton. Platform 4. Seat 18A. Departure time 12:15 a.m. Then he noticed something that made his heart stop. The date. Tomorrow. Not today. Tomorrow. Daniel laughed nervously. "There must be a mistake." The old man didn't smile. Railway machines don't make that kind of mistake. Daniel turned the ticket over. There was a sentence printed on the back. It wasn't part of any railway advertisement. It simply read, "Do not miss this train." A chill ran down his spine. He looked up. The old man was gone. The ticket booth was empty. The light inside had gone out. Daniel blinked. Just a few seconds earlier, the man had been sitting right there. Confused, Daniel walked around the booth. No one. No footsteps. No open door. Nothing. Only silence. He looked back at the strange ticket still resting in his hand. Then, his phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. It contained only 6 words. "Whatever happens tonight, stay alive." Daniel stared at the message. His fingers suddenly felt cold. Across the tracks, far in the darkness, he heard the sound of a train approaching. But according to the station board, no train was scheduled to arrive. Daniel stood frozen on platform 4. The station was silent. According to the departure board, there were no more trains that night. Yet the sound grew louder. A few seconds later, an old black train slowly appeared through the fog. Its headlights were dim, and its metal body looked older than any train Daniel had ever seen. There was no railway company logo, no train number, no destination. It stopped without making a sound. The doors slid open. No one got off, no one got on. Daniel looked around. The platform was empty. His phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. Get on the train. You only have one chance. His heart pounded. This has to be a prank, he whispered. But something inside him said, go. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. The doors closed immediately. The train began moving before Daniel even found his seat. Seat 18A. Exactly as printed on the mysterious ticket. The carriage was strangely warm. Soft yellow lights hung from the ceiling. Only 6 passengers were inside. An elderly woman quietly knitting, a little boy reading a comic book, a businessman staring out the window, a nurse holding a cup of tea, a young woman listening to music, and a man wearing a black hat whose face was hidden by a newspaper. No one spoke. No one even looked at Daniel. He sat down and tried to calm himself. Then he noticed something strange. Outside the window, the train wasn't passing through cities or villages. It was passing through places from his own life. He saw his old primary school, his childhood home, the football field where he broke his arm when he was 12, his first apartment. This isn't possible, he whispered. The nurse suddenly looked at him. It surprises everyone the first time. Daniel stared at her. What do you mean? She smiled gently. You'll understand soon. Before he could ask another question, the loudspeaker crackled. A calm voice echoed through the carriage. Next up, tomorrow. Daniel laughed nervously. What kind of joke is this? No one laughed. The businessman quietly folded his newspaper. It's not a joke. Daniel looked at him. What is this train? The man answered without emotion. This train shows people the future they are about to create. Daniel frowned. What future? The man pointed toward the window. Yours. Daniel slowly turned his head. The scenery outside had changed again. Now he saw a rainy street. An intersection. Blue police lights flashing. A damaged motorcycle lying on its side. People screaming. Ambulances arriving. Then, he saw someone lying on the ground. A man wearing the exact same coat, the exact same shoes, the exact same backpack. His own face. Daniel's blood ran cold. No, he whispered. No, that's impossible. The old woman closed her knitting needles. It happens tomorrow afternoon. Daniel jumped to his feet. I have to get off this train. He ran toward the door. Locked. He pulled harder. Nothing. The loudspeaker spoke again. Passengers may leave only after learning the lesson they came for. Daniel hit the door in frustration. Who are you people? The man in the black hat slowly lowered his newspaper for the first time. His face was pale. His eyes looked tired. Daniel felt as if he had seen him before. Then the man spoke. His voice was calm. I know exactly how you feel. Daniel frowned. Have we met? The man nodded. Yes. A long silence filled the carriage. Then he said 5 words that made Daniel stop breathing. I'm you 20 years later.
Daniel stared at the man in the black hat. His mind refused to believe what he had just heard. "You are me?" The man nodded slowly. 20 years from now. Daniel laughed nervously. "No, this isn't funny." The man reached into his pocket and placed an old leather wallet on the table between them. Inside was a faded driver's license. The name read, Daniel Brooks. The birth date? It was his. Daniel's hands began to shake. This can't be real. The older Daniel sighed. "I said the exact same thing when I first came here." Silence filled the carriage. The train continued moving through the darkness. Outside the window, scenes from Daniel's future appeared one after another. He saw himself getting a promotion. He saw himself buying a small house. He saw birthdays, Christmas dinners, moments of happiness. Then, suddenly, everything disappeared. The window became black. Only one image remained. The motorcycle accident. Tomorrow, 2:43 p.m. The older Daniel looked at him. That's the moment that changed my life." Daniel swallowed. "I die?" The older man slowly shook his head. "No. You survive." Daniel frowned. "Then why are you here?" The older Daniel looked down at his hands. "I survived. But someone else didn't." Daniel felt a chill run through his body. "Who?" The older Daniel closed his eyes. "A little girl." Daniel's heart stopped. "What?" "You were late for work tomorrow. You rushed through a red light. You hit another vehicle. The little girl died before the ambulance arrived." Daniel couldn't breathe. "No, I would never." "You don't mean to," the older Daniel interrupted gently. "But one careless decision changes everything." Tears filled his eyes. "I've spent 20 years wishing I could go back. I can't. But maybe you can." The train suddenly began slowing down. The loudspeaker echoed once more. "Final stop? Tomorrow." The doors opened. Bright white light flooded the carriage. The older Daniel stood up. "This is your stop." Daniel looked at him. "What happens to you?" The older man smiled for the first time. "If you make a different choice, I will never exist." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." The older Daniel simply nodded. "Live carefully, not quickly." Daniel stepped through the doors. Everything became white. Daniel opened his eyes. He was sitting alone on the cold bench at the railway station. The morning sun was rising. People were walking past as if nothing had happened. He looked around. The strange train was gone. His phone showed 7:15 a.m. Had it all been a dream? He looked into his pocket. The mysterious ticket was still there. Only one sentence remained on the back. Every tomorrow begins with today's choices. Daniel folded the ticket carefully and placed it inside his wallet. The next afternoon, 2:35 p.m., Daniel was riding his motorcycle to a job interview.
His phone rang. Normally, he would have answered. Instead, he remembered the ticket. He pulled over safely. The traffic light ahead turned red. A few seconds later, a speeding truck ran through the intersection. Daniel watched in shock. If he had continued, he would have entered the crossing at exactly that moment. His motorcycle would have been destroyed. And on the opposite sidewalk, a little girl stood beside her mother, holding a red balloon. She smiled as they safely crossed the street. Daniel felt tears running down his face. He had just witnessed the future changing.
20 years later, Daniel had become a successful author. His first best-selling novel was called Tomorrow's Ticket. During every interview, people asked him the same question. What inspired this story? Daniel always smiled. I once received a train ticket with tomorrow's date. Everyone laughed. They thought it was only a story. Only Daniel knew the truth. Sometimes, life gives us only one chance to make the right choice. Not through magic, not through miracles, but through the small decisions we make every single day. Because one careful moment can change an entire lifetime. The end.